Welcome to the Are You GCSE Physics Ready playlist. This playlist is packed with example questions and guided solutions for every GCSE Physics topic. So it's the perfect tool to help you test your understanding. If you feel like you might need a quick review of this topic before having a go at the questions, or you would just like the ideal revision companion for these videos, then do make sure to download my free GCSE Physics revision notes, linked in the description below. If you're ready, let's dive in.
So in this first question here, we have Bob would like to pick a type of glass for the window in his bathroom. He would like it to let the natural light in whilst maintaining his privacy. Fair enough, Bob. He can choose either transparent or translucent glass, and we need to suggest which one he should choose. Okay, so in order to come to some conclusion, first we'll need to write down what does transparent mean and what does translucent mean. So transparent first means that that material will transmit all of the different wavelengths of light, so it will let all of that light through. Translucent, on the other hand, means the same. It will let all of those wavelengths of light through, but translucent has this extra property that means it will also scatter that light as it lets it through. And the scattering of that light as it goes through a translucent material is what makes the image on the other side appear a bit blurry. So it would seem that for Bob, he can get all that natural light coming in, but if he wants it to blur all of the light from his bathroom so that people from the outside can't see in, then he needs a translucent material. Okay, let's start with the question on the left. So we have explain why a purple object can be reflecting a mixture of wavelengths of light, but a blue object only reflects blue light. Okay, so the key difference between purple and blue here is that blue is a primary colour of light and purple is not. So our three primary colours are blue, red and green, and to be a primary colour means that you can't make that colour mixing together other wavelengths of light. So blue can only be made up of blue light being reflected, whereas purple could be some purple light being reflected from an object, or it could also be a mixture of blue wavelengths and red wavelengths being reflected by an object, that when you see those wavelengths together, the object appears purple. So that's the difference here. Blue is primary, purple is not, and it can be made up of reflecting blue and red wavelengths. Okay. What would a green object, red object and yellow object look like as viewed through a green filter? So let's start with the green object first. So first we need to know, what do colour filters do? And what they do is only allow certain wavelengths of light to pass through them. This green filter here will only allow green light to pass through it. So if you put a green object behind it, then all of that green light can pass through your filter, so your object will appear green. However, if you put a red object behind it, that green filter will actually absorb all of that red light. So no light will make it through the filter, and that will make your red object appear black through the green filter. But what about something that is yellow? Now, yellow is not one of our primary colours of light, so an object that is yellow can be reflecting yellow light, but it can also be reflecting a mixture of green and red light. And as it reflects all of these three different colours and then goes through my green filter, only the green light will make it through that green filter. All the yellow and red will be absorbed. So your yellow object will still appear green through the green filter. Now don't worry, I know I've said here yellow is made of green and red and purple's mixed of red and blue, but you don't need to know what mixtures of primary colours would create what colour. You only need to know that the three primary colours are blue, green and red. Okay, onto lenses. So we are looking at converging lenses first, and we are looking at how we form different types of images. So all of our lens diagrams should start off looking something like this. You have the horizontal line, you have your lens in the middle, and this one has the double-ended arrows which are pointing outwards to show me it's a converging lens. And then you have your focus on either side of your lens, and the distance between your lens and your focus is called your focal length. Okay. The object that I'm looking at today is this green arrow here. So that's my object, and I want to know, if I look through this lens, what is the image that I will see of this object? So we're going to start where it's 2 focal lengths away from the lens. And for your converging diagrams, you have 3 possible light rays that you can draw. So the first one, I'm going to draw all of these from the top of my object, and it's going to go parallel to the horizontal to the lens like that. Then as it goes through the lens, it's going to bend such a way that it's directed through the focus on the other side like that. Okay, so that's my first one. My second one is a line that goes just diagonally right through the center of my lens. So from the top of my object through, and draw that line all the way down to the other side. Okay, and then my final line here is one that actually goes through the focus on the left-hand side of the picture, and then when it hits the lens, it travels parallel to the horizontal. And you can see that these have all converged or met at a point, and that point of my image matches the point that I started drawing these lines from for my object. So that will be the tip of my arrow, and that comes down from the horizontal like that. If I then wanted to describe this image, I would say something about its size. So the size of this image that I have here is actually roughly the same as the size of my object. And then the inversion, is it upright or is it inverted? So here it is inverted. And then finally, the final thing I need to worry about is it real or is it virtual? This arrow here is all those 3 lines all met at a point, my light rays. So this is a real image because it's made up of real light rays. Okay, now we're going to do the same, but this time our object is at the focus. So first line I'm going to draw in is this parallel line there. So the same one as before to the lens, and then draw that line as it gets bent through the focus on the other side. Then my second line is that diagonal line, okay, from the top of my image through the center of my lens. Now you can see that these 2 rays are not going to meet at a point here. So what you do in this instance is you trace those real light rays back a bit. So I've drawn 2 dotted lines, those should be straight, in the direction of those real light rays, but tracing them back a bit. Now actually, those light rays are also not going to meet at a point. So both my real and virtual light rays are all parallel to each other. So that means that none of the light rays are going to join, and I'm never going to get an image. Because they're parallel, they'll not meet, and I will not get an image through my lens. Okay, now time to look at a diverging lens. So just note the difference here, that those arrowheads are now pointing inwards to show that this lens is diverging. So again, this time 2 focal lengths away from my lens is my object, and my lines are slightly different this time. The first line starts the same as my line previously for my converging lens. So I have that horizontal line up to my lens, but then it diverges up and away that line as it goes through that lens. And I haven't just picked a random direction to put that diverging ray in. If you can see, I've actually drawn dotted line from the lens back, traced it back to the focus on the left-hand side. So that is the direction that line needs to go off in. And it's slightly easier than your converging ones. You only have 1 more light ray to draw, and that is the same as previously, where you go through the center and then down to the other side. So you can see here that, again, if I look at my right hand side, those 2 real light rays, they're spreading out far from each other and they're never going to meet at a point. However, if I look at my virtual black ray that I've traced the straight line back to the focus, and my purple light ray that I've just drawn in, there is a point where those two light rays cross, and that is where your image will form. So that's where my little green arrow will have its top there. So if I wanted to describe this image, it is definitely diminished, a lot smaller. It's upright this time, and it is virtual because it's not made from real light rays. There's one real light ray and one virtual light ray. Okay, and we can ask ourselves, well, does it make a difference where my object was? So this time I'm going to put my object a distance of at the focus this time. So let me draw those light rays in again. So I've got that first one where I go horizontal to the lens and then draw that light ray out like that, having traced it back to my focus. And then the second light ray straight through the center of the lens. And again, you can see that my black light ray meets my purple light ray there, and that is where my image will form. So it's still diminished, it's still upright, and it's still virtual. It's diminished slightly less than the other one, but it's still got those same three descriptors for this one.
Just before we go into the tips and tricks section, if you do want some extra advice to getting that grade 9 for your GCSE, then why not download my free 20-minute exam success guide? Just click on the link in the description below. I'm going to give away all of my best advice and secrets, and completely for free, so why not?
Okay, my tips and tricks for this section. So the first one is to do with the arrowhead that you draw if you want a convex or concave lens. So the first picture here, these two black lines going like this, that is your concave lens or your diverging lens, and the ones that go like this, like out, bulging outwards, is your convex lens, okay, or your converging lens. And the arrowheads at the end sort of look like the shape of the lens. So remember, for your convex one or converging one, you had the arrows pointing outwards. So that looks more like a rounded shape. And for your concave one, where you had the arrows pointing inwards to show your lens, that looks a bit like that concave shape there. Remember, you need 3 descriptors if it asks you to describe an image. You always talk about its size, orientation, and its nature. Is it real or is it virtual? Final one is that your primary colours are different in art to what they are with light. So it is green, blue, and red as opposed to yellow.